Everyone knows about the common interior design mistakes like raise your curtains to the ceilings or your rug needs to be big. But what about these 15 interior design mistakes that no one talks about, but once you see them, you can't unsee them? Well, I'm gonna break it down in today's video so that you stop ruining your home. So let's get into these ASAP. This interior design mistake is forgetting about acoustics. You're forgetting about sound. So spaces are great. People hate buying big rugs because they're expensive. That makes sense because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, all I do is get crumbs on this and walk on this occasionally, and this is gonna cost me $1,500. That's insane. And then it's gonna shed and it's gonna look like Bigfoot lives in my house. I totally get you, right? Rugs are impossibly expensive. I've linked some of my favorite affordable ones right here, so you can click here to check any of those out. But with all that being said, if you don't have a rug down, you don't have something to help absorb sound. In your space, sound can travel very widely. So whether you live in a condo, whether you live in an apartment, whether you have, children in your house, maybe you have siblings, maybe you have your spouse. If you are upstairs in your bedroom railing about your spouse and you don't have a rug down, they're gonna hear you in your living room. If you're talking crap on the phone to your best friend talking about, I cannot believe Billy Joe did this, Billy Joe's gonna know. Okay, Billy Joe probably already knows, right? Because he messed up. But Billy Joe's gonna know because you haven't thought about the acoustics. You need to put a rug down to help dampen the sound. It's also going to anchor all of your furniture. There's so many good reasons to have a rug, but acoustics are a major part of that. That's another reason why we have curtains. Curtains help absorb sound, especially the thicker the curtain, the more they help absorb sound. And as I'm making this video, I'm talking about my upstairs neighbor. Ma'am, please get some rugs, okay? Please, because I can hear everything. I love all the life that you're living for yourself. Mazel tov, but get some rugs. The next interior design mistake that people make all the time, and I know you're gonna be like, I can't really control this, but this is still a huge thing. It is ignoring what is outside of your window. So of course we can't change what's outside of our window. I can't tell my neighbor, don't park out there. I don't like the way that your car looks outside my window. Okay, you can't do that. That's too much. If you're thinking about doing that, let's relax. Maybe go to the spa. We're a little bit too high strung, okay? That being said, we want to think about what's outside of our window and let that inform how we're framing out that window. For example, if what's outside of our window always looks completely awful, maybe we would consider a Roman shade as opposed to curtains, right? Or maybe we do like a double layered curtain with like panels and then shears so that we're still letting light in, but we're obscuring what's out there. If you have a beautiful green pasture, right, then we really want curtains that are framing that out, and we want to really bounce off of that green. Maybe we want to position a mirror opposite of that to help reflect all of that beautiful natural light. We want our window treatments to be informed by what's outside of the window and by like the lighting and all of that good stuff, because if there's great natural light, that's going to impact how we lay out our mirrors, our lighting, the positioning of our furniture. If you can see the neighbor's bathroom next door through your front window, then we're going to change our window treatments to be respectful of them and to be respectful of our eyes. Just little things like that make a huge difference, and I think people don't think about that. I think something else people forget is just like the space on either side of the window. If you want privacy, but there's only a half an inch of space on the other side, please don't cover it with curtains, okay? There's so many different types of window treatments. There's nothing wrong with shutters. There's nothing wrong with blinds. There's nothing wrong with shades. All the people saying that you have to have custom curtains or nothing else are just plain out of touch, okay? And if they really want you to have that, they can come pay for it for themselves, okay? At me when you talk to them about it. I don't care, they're out of touch. This one is very niche, okay? This one is very particular. This is for our scent sensitive people, but another interior design mistake you're making is that your scents are clashing. Those people who have like 50 million Glade plugins, I think the brand is called Glade, is it Glade plugins, and they're like pine scent, fresh island scent, coconut scent, black ice is literally the car scent, I don't care. They have 50 million different scents, and you're like, okay, am I in the tropics? Am I in the Arctic? What part of the globe am I supposed to be on? Because there's so many different scents going on. It can be a sensory overload, and I think that we sometimes forget that we get nose blindness. So we can live in our home and it smells good to us, or it doesn't smell any different to us, but when someone else walks in, they're like, whoa, right? And we shouldn't decorate our homes for other people because you're the one who has to live there, but we want to be cognizant of other people. For example, I love incense, but I know incense, like you can open the door and it feels like, whew, So you want to be cognizant of that, and therefore don't infuse too many different scents in too many different places. What I like to do, because I'm a huge scent person, is in a bathroom, I will have a candle that always sits there, but the candle's never lit. So we get some of the scent because it's just a high quality candle, but we don't get scent, because also at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many candles you have in your bathroom, how many plugins you have, it's gonna smell like a bathroom mixed with that candle. okay? So scent overload can be a huge thing, so just keep that in mind. But of course, this also means that we want to make sure that we're cleaning our garbage disposals, we're taking out our trash, things like that, because they can lead to huge scent problems that we may not notice, but would be very affronting to other people. Now, I'm not going to go on and on about this because this is one people have talked about, but I just have to say it again for good measure. And that is having the correct temperature of lighting. Each different part of your home needs a correct temperature of lighting. In places where you're doing tasks, think kitchens, bathrooms, offices, garages, we want more cool light because it is more bright light, it is more like daylight, it's glaring, and then you can see what it is you need to do. For moody vibes, maybe your dining room, your living room, your bedroom, okay? You want warmer light because it's more relaxing, it's gonna help lull you off to sleep, set the mood, all the things that you wanna do. You don't wanna get your temperature lighting wrong because you can have like the moodiest, like nice, sultry living room, right? You laid all the browns, like all the warm, moody tones, and then you turn on this bright white light, and I'm like, okay, are you a serial killer? Dexter, is that you? I'm scared, okay? So we just want to be cognizant of that. And this is particularly an open concept problem, but the next interior design mistake you're making is you're not making your open concept spaces flow together. I don't mean in terms of design style, please. If you have an interior design style, you can't change it in an open concept between the living room and the dining room, because the living and the dining room are the same room, okay? I'm all for having different rooms all throughout the home. I love how out of touch that is, you know, when people are like, I have a Nantucket room, I have an Amazon room, I have a outer space room, you know, it's giving Elon Musk. But the idea is cool. I knew people growing up who had like different themed rooms. I think that's fun. You can't do that in an open concept because it looks absolutely egregious. There's no flow, there's no connection. I don't care how much repetition you're doing. The spaces are too close together. It's too disjointed. But that's not even what I'm talking about here. I just started going on a rant. What I mean is we want to create zones with our furniture. So maybe we want our living room and our dining room to be perpendicular to one another, right? So that all the furniture isn't oriented in the same direction so that it feels kind of like a hallway. We don't want our spaces to feel like a hallway. You want there to be a certain number of entryways so that it feels like you can easily maneuver between those two rooms. We want to have at least 2 ways to direct traffic into any space, especially in an open concept. Of course, it's not always possible. And the best way to, again, connect these zones is to, 1, just think of like that flow of traffic rule that I just told you about, and 2, as I just said, we want to repeat colors, textures, patterns. There needs to be at least some repetition. If there's no repetition, the spaces are going to just feel like totally different rooms. It's going to give like you're in IKEA and they have like the different types of rooms and you're like, this is really cool, but like totally different vibe and 2 different spaces. There has to be some repetition. There has to be some flow. It could be as simple as maybe having a pattern in your area rug in your dining room and pulling one of those colors out and using that pattern in your rug for your living room. Now, this one is just a plain attack on myself. I don't know if my self-confidence is pretty low this morning or what, but the next interior design mistake that most of us are making is that there is too much symmetry. So symmetry is the idea where one side of something mirrors the other side. You have the exact same items on either side, period. Literally my living room, right? Now, this can look good to an extent, right? Maybe it's an art in murals, maybe it's art, maybe something like that, and it's good. Symmetry is a great thing. It is a very, very powerful tool. It also helps make interior design easy. And you know, like you shouldn't want to rip your hair out designing your living room. That's why I'm bald, right? Okay, so I don't want you to end up like me. So symmetry is a good thing and it makes design easy. With that being said, when there's too much symmetry, it just starts to look like a catalog. It starts to look like a magazine. It lacks character because there's no place to infuse the character. Because you can't find 2 precious heirlooms that are identical, right? That's not character, that's just ordering 2 of the same thing from Amazon. So fine, I love symmetry. We should do it in some places, but don't do it in every single aspect of your room. So what I used to have here, I'm gonna attack myself. I'm attacking you. I'm gonna critique myself, okay? I used to have the 2 matching paintings. Then I had the 2 matching white sofas. Then I had the 4 matching task lamps, right? And then I had the matching pillows on either side. It was like, damn, do you have no imagination? And the answer at the time was yes. Okay, that's fine. But now I do have the 2 matching paintings, but I have different chairs on this side. I normally have green chairs on this side, and then I have my white sofa. On my white sofa, I have black pillows, I have tan pillows, I even have a red pillow. Okay, I'm living on the edge, right? I do have coordinating lamps on either side, but I have different art all throughout my living space now. They're different sizes, they're flanked by different lighting options, things like that. I created a little bit of nuance. So we're still relying on symmetry because symmetry is a beautiful thing. We find it very, very aesthetically pleasing visually. When we think about humans and what we find beautiful, the most symmetrical people are considered the most beautiful people in the world, right? We love symmetry. We see it in nature, okay? But we don't want our houses to be perfectly symmetrical because then they lack personality. So So have symmetry, but also infuse a little bit of personality, switch it up a little bit. Consider asymmetrical balance, which is where we're still creating visual balance. We're still occupying the exact same amount of space on either side, but we're using different items to do that. So a good example of that might be, is maybe on one side of this mirror, I have this large Kadir bowling, and on the other side, maybe I have two paintings and a plant, occupying the same amount of space, but they're not identical. It creates a little bit more visual interest that's really gonna capture you. The next design mistake I see all the time is people design for Instagram, not real life. And I feel like if you're an Instagrammer, I guess that's fine. I guess. But if you're the average person who does not have an aspiring social media career, you do not aspire to be an architectural digest, please, you're allowed to have storage containers, okay? I just feel like someone needs to say this. You're allowed to have storage containers. You're allowed to have shoes. You don't need to hide them somewhere. I'm not hiding my shoes, my dog walking shoes. My dog has to go out 4 times a day. Excuse me, I'm not hiding my shoes, okay? I gotta go outside in the pouring rain because I live in Pittsburgh. My shoes are staying where they need to be. Your house doesn't have to be entirely Instagrammable, because most Instagrammable houses have a room that looks like absolute garbage where they throw all the stuff in. You need to have a house that is realistic for you. You need to have ample open and closed storage. You need to have ample surfaces to put things on, because normal people have mail. They get packages. They have sports equipment. Do not design your home for Instagram, because Instagram homes do not account for storage. They do not account for the things that a lot of people like to be unseen, because I'm telling you, as an Instagrammer, as a YouTuber, I have a whole dedicated room that looks like absolute flaming garbage, okay, at all times. It doesn't matter how often I clean it. I could hire the entire home edit crew to come here. It's not gonna get any better. And every person on Instagram, they at least have a closet, maybe a bathroom that they do this with, okay? So real houses need storage. Real houses require practical thinking. So just keep that in mind. Don't get caught up in, oh my gosh, I need to have this perfectly pedestal table. The pedestal table doesn't have any storage, okay? So maybe have one, but also have a storage table as well. Next up, we want to talk about high maintenance materials in high traffic areas. Putting high maintenance material in high traffic areas literally just means you hate yourself, because why would you do that? We talk about this all the time in regards to paint sheen. We talk about having an eggshell, a semi-gloss, a high gloss in a high traffic area. You're not going to put flat ceiling paint on your walls in your living room. You're just asking for your kids to scuff it, to draw on it, to spit on it, to all the things that kids do, okay? And all the things that husbands and wives do, okay? We're not gonna do that. So the same thing should apply to your other materials. Please don't put your multi-$1,000 silk rug right in the entryway of your home. You're just asking for people to get mud, snow, salt, debris all over it, and then you have beef with all these family members, and they're like, okay, ma'am, but you also could have just had common sense and not put that item in a high traffic area. The most high traffic areas in the home are going to be the entryway, the kitchen, and the living room and bathroom. So those 4 places are the places where you don't want to put your super valuable items. Instead, you're going to want to put those valuable items either in a sitting room, if you have a sitting room, a dining room, because in reality, most of America, we eat at our coffee table. I know someone's going to be like, my family eats at the dining room every single day. I love that. That's amazing. I wish we all did that. Most of us are sitting in front of the TV. Okay, that's what we're doing in the United States of America. So that means we can put pretty things in the dining room because we're not in there as much. We can also put high maintenance items higher up in the home. So we're gonna put our priceless mirrors, our beautiful artwork that we invested in while we were on vacation, we're gonna put those items higher up. Maybe we're gonna put them along a staircase, right? Maybe we're gonna put them in the bedroom, in the library. We're not going to put them in our kids' playroom. I think we buy items and we invest in items, which you should do. You are worth investing in, your home is worth investing in, but we don't think about the correct place to put those items, and therefore they kind of lose their value. They depreciate really quickly because we're not able to take care of them, because we put high maintenance items in high traffic areas. High maintenance items should go in low traffic areas, point blank, period. Along with that, if you are thinking about fabrics, we're not going to put velvet, and velvet is a cheap fabric, so it doesn't even have to be expensive. We're not going to put velvet in our kids' playroom. We're not going to use a velvet sofa as our living room sofa. No, we're going to use velvet for maybe an accent chair in a bedroom, maybe a sitting room, maybe even what you've upholstered, maybe a little bench in your living room. Something that people aren't sitting on all of the time, because velvet is very difficult to clean, very difficult to maintain, it very easily looks dirty. Then we're going to use maybe a cotton blend, or a performance fabric for our main items. Or maybe for like places that always get messy, we're not even gonna get an upholstered dining chair. We're gonna get a wooden dining chair or a metal chair or a wooden counter stool or dining stool. We don't necessarily have to spend more money to improve this problem. We are just going to be strategic where we place these high maintenance items in our home. And don't worry, we're gonna have a whole video coming up about how to design your home beautifully with kids, because now I'm a mom and I'm like, whoa, this is a game changer. So be sure to subscribe if you wanna watch that video, because it's gonna be funny, but it's also going to be informational. Next up is a simple one, and that next interior design mistake you are making is that you are not accounting for door swings. You are laying out your furniture beautifully, right? You've got the perfect flow, everything's looking nice, and then you're trying to open your bedroom door and you cannot get out of the space. People will float furniture, and I think floating furniture looks nice, right? Floating furniture helps the space feel more full because there's empty space, there's there's nuance there. I'm not gonna explain all of that to you. We do not have enough time in today's video. So if you wanna hear me talk about that, subscribe, because I'll talk about it another time. But we want to make sure that our furniture is floating so that not everything is pushed up against the wall, so that it feels like a space that's meant for conversation. With that being said, don't float your sofa 2 inches in front of a door, because then you can't get through that door. Not only does that just look stupid, but also it is a safety hazard because you cannot easily maneuver in and out of a room. You want to make sure anyone can get out of the room in case of emergency, in case of danger, something like that. So while we do want to float our furniture, while we want to make sure all of our spaces, especially if it's an open concept, doesn't look like a repeat of the prior space, we also want to be cognizant of door swings. We want to make sure that we're not swinging open our door and hitting that console that took us 500 hours to assemble from IKEA. We want to make sure that we're not opening the bathroom door and hitting everybody in the room. Or we want to make sure that we're not positioning our furniture so that when we're sitting down having Thanksgiving dinner, we can hear the uncle that, you know, maybe ate a few too many plates in the bathroom just 2 feet away. We want to be strategic with our placement while also trying to craft a nice flow in the space. The same thing applies in a kitchen and our kitchen cabinets. This is a problem I actually have in my kitchen with my refrigerator. It's the builder's problem, not Kiva's problem. But when I open up my refrigerator, I can only open it up so much on one side, so I can't put lots of things in my crisper, things like that. That's irritating. You should be able to open your cabinets in your kitchen and also have your oven door open, okay? You should be able to look for seasoning and also open your oven, or else you are going to have some bland food, and nobody wants that, okay? We want to be able to have both open at the same time, because bland food is over in 2025. I'm calling it. Well, I'm not calling it, I'm praying for it. Now this one, it's easier said than done to fix, but poor outlet placement, this really comes down to electrical, space plating, all of that. You personally can't really do anything about this, but what you can do is if you have like a really poorly placed outlet, you can get a neat socket or something like that, or sleek socket that will help obscure that outlet and kind of reroute it so that you're not seeing tons of cords. Of course, you can't control your outlet placement. Like I have one like 5 feet up on my wall, and I'm like, okay, how do you want me to plug my phone in? I got like a command strip on the back of my phone or something stupid. But you can reroute those connections so that they're a little bit more useful, so that you can do cord management. Don't be afraid to get on your hands and knees, run cords underneath your rugs, underneath your furniture and things like that to keep the house looking really, really nice and sleek. Cord management can ruin a place, and it can also be very, very dangerous when you don't do the cord management. So it's a twofer. So lots of people have fear of color these days because they don't understand how to use color. You can use color by using the color wheel. It doesn't have to be an emotional experience. I hate when people are like, oh, do what you feel. I don't feel anything. Just tell me what to do. I feel like that's how 90% of the world feels. You can just use the color wheel. There are complementary colors, there are analogous colors, there's so many different ways to combine colors. I'll put them all up on the screen. Just follow these guides. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. If you like neutrals, you can have an all neutral home and not be afraid of colors. I like having neutral home. It works for me. It's easier for me to maintain. But you can have a tree. Having a tree doesn't mean that you're no longer neutral. You do not need to be afraid of nature, honey. It's okay. It's okay, you can have nature. You can have a piece of art that you want. I have a client recently who has this like really nice moody brown earthy like Afro modern home, and we also put a Barbie painting in there, and it looks damn good because she likes Barbie. You should have the things that you love and you can make them work. It has to do with the type of frame you put something in, maybe the type of plant you put the pot in. You can have things that have color and still have a neutral home. It just takes a little bit of tact. Next up is ignoring climate context. I've touched on this before, and this is this is gonna cause some controversy in the comments. I already knew that, but designing for where you live. So a lot of people are like, I wanna have a little cottage in the middle of this industrial loft in New York City. Okay, that's fine. Like, you can do that, of course. But If your house has so much, millwork, it has steel work, it has the piping and stuff like that, maybe lean into something a little bit more industrial. I'm not saying go full brutalist. I'm not saying your house needs to look like the districts from the Hunger Games. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you want to incorporate those items. You want to make them look like they make sense, as opposed to being like, oh my gosh, this is my little fairy cottage. Okay? You don't live in the French countryside or the European countryside, and that's fine. Okay, that's totally fine. It's just like if I tried to build a cabin in the middle of Pittsburgh, it wouldn't look quite right. Of course, you can have the colors that you want. Your room can have like the nice cottage patterns and things like that. The same thing could apply if you wanted a really contemporary space in a very, maybe like a plantation style home. You can do all of these things, just try to incorporate elements of both interior design styles so it doesn't feel like you're ignoring the architectural details in the millwork that your home has. If you're not going to eliminate those materials, you need to integrate them. You cannot just ignore them, because while you might ignore them, they will still stick out like a sore thumb. It could be as simple as, maybe if you have exposed piping, using steel as your accent metal as opposed to using gold. Something subtle like that can make a huge difference and really help the space feel seamless. And last but certainly not least, the interior design mistake that I know that all of you are making. So I'm glad we're ending with a bang here. And if you're still here and you're still liking today's video, be sure to subscribe and like this video. And I've also linked a bunch of other videos down in the description box that I think you'd really, really enjoy watching. So be sure to go check those out. But the last interior design mistake you are making is that you are not leaving space for visual pause. So I love that you've collected lots of art from your travels. I love all your family photos. I'm not actually the interior designer who's going to tell you to get rid of them. I am not that person. I design for everyday real people. Okay, so hear me when I say that. That being said, there needs to be some space to breathe. If you have a piece of art on every surface in your home, there's no way for me to appreciate that art, to look at that family photo, to appreciate that moment, because I don't know where to focus. My eyes cannot focus because there's so much overwhelming me. There needs to be some empty space. It's called negative space. We're gonna call it empty space. There needs to be some empty space. We need some breathing room because we don't want visual exhaustion. Visual exhaustion is a huge thing. You might have spent all this time curating the space, finding all these items from all your travels, going to estate sales, doing so much hunting, and really, really putting some care and attention into your home, and you can't even appreciate it because you're not sure where to look. You can do visual overload in many different rooms in your home. You can still be a maximalist, but you still need to have breathing room. The most common place I see this, one, would be any place where we have like massive gallery walls, and two, on surfaces like coffee tables and console tables. Give me room to breathe. Break your coffee table into thirds or into quadrants and at least leave one of those sections empty. If you're styling a console, a mantle, if you're gonna have decor on the outside, leave the middle empty. If you're gonna have decor in the middle, leave the periphery empty. We need breathing room so that we can appreciate all the vignettes you're taking the time to curate, to invest in, to think about, and all of that good stuff. But okay, you guys, that's it for today's video. Those are some interior design mistakes that you probably haven't heard of before, but they're ruining your home. And like I said, right, once you see them, you cannot unsee them. But don't worry, in today's video, I told you how to fix them. Which interior design mistake in today's video absolutely blew your mind? Which one has you rearranging your home as we speak? Well, if you like today's video, please consider smashing that subscribe button, because I create useful, practical, helpful interior design videos each and every week, and I'd love to have you as a member of our community. But until next time, have a beautiful day.